Why should I consider switching from a Unix-based system to perhaps a Windows-based system?
I would say you don't even have to choose, especially with GB10, because it literally fits in the palm of your hand. You can actually be using a Dell Pro-Max AI PC with Windows running for all of your productivity apps and have this GB10 attached to it. And you can let it be, if you're training a small model, fine-tune it can be on the side, right?
Yeah, you can actually daisy chain two of them together. Even that setup would be smaller than pretty much every desktop tower that we sell.
Welcome to the Super Data Science Podcast. It's awesome to have two guests, not just one, on the show today. Logan Lawler, where are you calling in from today?
Hey, John, thanks for having me on. So I am calling in from, well, I'm going to say Austin, Texas. It's technically Round Rock, Texas, at Dell's corporate headquarters.
Very nice. And then we also have Sama Bali on the show. Sama, where are you calling in from?
Hi, John. I'm calling from San Francisco Bay Area. Unlike Logan, I'm actually at my home, so...
Nice. And for our YouTube viewers, they can enjoy Sama's beautiful background. It's outstanding. It's like, it's, 99th percentile of guests we have on the podcast in terms of, it's very peaceful, but it's also a bit officey. Just really nice colors. I love it.
And it's NVIDIA green.
It is NVIDIA green. You don't like the carpet color back there? The carpet color?
Logan,
it's pretty good.
Logan's in a cubicle.
Yeah,
it looks very corporate.
It
looks like he's in Austin, Texas in a cubicle.
Yeah, exactly.
And he is.
And I am.
Do you have any fun coworkers around you that you have like Nerf gun things or whatever shooting at them in their cubicles?
Honestly, part of my earlier career, there was a lot of that at Dell. Like there was a lot of hijinks and shenanigans. I would say as I've progressed in my career and got a little older, those hijinks have kind of went away, which is kind of, hurt my heart a little bit because I quite enjoyed it.
That's too bad. I remember the last time I worked in an office with cubicles, some people had like remote operated. It wasn't Nerf brand, but it was that same kind of idea of firing a completely harmless dart with like a suction cup. But they had turrets that you could remote control that were positioned on top of their cubicles. I do miss that. That is something I miss about that kind of corporate setup. Anyway, we're not here to talk about desk arrangements. We are here to talk about amazing innovations. And so at the time of recording this episode, we are just a week out from NVIDIA GTC, which is one of the biggest tech conferences in the world. I don't know if you guys have some stats. Maybe it is literally the biggest. So tell us about that experience. Maybe we'll start with Sama since you are formally at NVIDIA. And so tell us about GTC. What's that like for... I haven't actually been to GTC myself, and I bet a lot of listeners haven't either. What is that like? We see so much of it on social media and the news. What's it like in person?
The way it was described as the Super Bowl of AI, and I don't think anybody could have described it any better. San Jose is my college town, so I was really excited to see that we really painted the entire town green with all the innovations, not just from NVIDIA, but also our partners, everyone from cloud partners to enterprises to startups. It's amazing to see, and we are in the center of Silicon Valley, but to see that kind of innovation come to life was a great experience for me, I will say that. You could see all kinds of developers filled with data scientists, practitioners, tons of opportunities to really network with people working in all kinds of tech companies at this point in time. Some amazing. I mean, I never thought I'll be having conversations with so many robots in my life in just a span of 5 days. But that happened. My favorite moment, although, will be seeing Jensen, who is our CEO at NVIDIA, within the Denny's food truck. I never in my world imagined that there is a food truck from Denny's as well. There was one. He was serving food right before he went and actually presented the keynote. So that was my favorite moment for sure. I'm also a nerd in a sort where I've seen people camp out, Apple offices whenever they're announcing the new iPhone. For the first time in my life, I've seen people camp out to get into a keynote venue as well. People were lined up at 6 a.m., which was, again, insane in my mind. So
wow.
It definitely was a festival in San Jose, I will say.
Very nice. Logan, any highlights for you?
I think Sama more or less covered it. I mean, it was my first GTC that I've ever been to. And I think it was a lot. And when I say this is meant to be a positive, but in terms of the learning, the education, just the boost setup, all the options, it was a bit overwhelming, right? Like I think the key thing is to go in kind of with a plan of like, here's what I want to accomplish. Here is for example, the learning track that I want to go down, whether I'm a data scientist or, whatever, is to have that plan going in, because it's very easy to go stand in the middle of the trade show floor and just kind of look around and just be in wonder for hours. But I loved it. It was great. Tons of traffic, very packed, wall to wall. It's not necessarily my jam, but hey, we were there.
Fantastic. That sounds like an amazing experience. I'll have to check it out in a future year. Maybe maybe someone for NVIDIA from NVIDIA or Dell will invite me, and maybe I can contribute in some way actually in the future. I don't know. I hadn't thought of that before, but that could be a lot of fun. All right. So particular to what both of you do, Dell unveiled at GTC last week the Pro-Max PCs. So what are those? And I mean, maybe that's just, I don't need to have an end.
Okay.
What are Pro-Max PCs?
What are
That seems
Pro-Max
like a question,
PCs?
yeah.
Okay. So and when I say we, I mean Dell, we kind of I wouldn't say launched, but we announced these at CES, right? So overall, give you a quick bit of background is Dell, coming this year for many years had, lots of disparate brands, right? From professional to personal use, precision, Optiplex, XPS, the list goes on and on. So really the rebrand kind of starts there, is how do our customers shop? And that's really broken down into what we've launched with a new brand kind of nomenclature, which is Dell, which is, for home and basic work. You have Dell Pro, think of your traditional consumer or your traditional professional, knowledge worker, workflow, thing like that. And then Dell Pro Max, which is what I support, is really designed for heavy ISV type workloads. Think like,
ISV?
engineering. Yeah, ISV, like an independent software vendor. So think like, CATIA or Dassault software, Adobe, where it's designed for specific workflows within industries that really rely on like heavy GPU compute and acceleration to get their workflows done. So we announced them at CES. We launched them at GTC, which is, to be honest, more of a kind of an ISG type show. And I was really excited with the amount of, press, but also, the feedback, because we've been in the, supporting data scientists. We've been supporting, that was our precision line before. But with the launch of Dell Pro Max, I think the key thing to take away is we still have our traditional, our towers, our mobiles. That hasn't changed, all accelerated by Blackwell GPUs. The difference is we did, and I know we're going to talk about this, so I won't jump the shark too much, but we launched two systems that are specifically designed for data scientists and developers with kind of system on a chip with Grace Blackwell designs, which really was kind of a difference. And I think a recognition from Dell and the market to say, we know where the market's going. We need to have a purpose-built device for data scientists that is easy, turnkey, that brings the power of a server to the desk side, which I know sounds crazy to say, but that's really what's happening. So that was kind of the big announcement, which we can get into more later too.
Very cool. And so I guess the reason why that is announced at GTC is because of the inclusion of NVIDIA GPUs in the Pro-Max PC line.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that is correct. And I mean, we're great partners. I mean, that's from kind of I won't say inception of AI, but over the last several years, the Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA has been kind of a cornerstone to kind of our go-to-market and how we make AI real. So it made perfect sense because workstations are very GPU dependent. It's the only thing that has the ProViz cards in the lineup. So it makes perfect sense to launch it at GTC.
Cool. And so Sama, then what's your involvement from the NVIDIA side with these Pro-Max PCs?
So I at NVIDIA lead our AI solutions go to market. So my job is to see, when we are taking these new GPUs to market with our partners like Dell, how does that full solution come together? And it becomes a solution once you really add in that layer of NVIDIA AI software to it, right? And that's what really truly becomes NVIDIA, Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA. We've got that entire hardware lineup from Dell, but then along with that NVIDIA AI software, which is kind of consistent, you've got consistent experience. If you're starting from workstations, moving to server, moving it to your data center, moving it back to your workstation as well, it's that software layer which really helps you, one, harness the power of GPUs, because this entire software layer is really optimized. So your data scientists, your developers don't really have to do that fine tuning between the software or the AI models they're using and the hardware at that point in time. So that really is my job, is to really talk about and manage the go-to-market for that entire full solution of Dell Pro-Max PCs along with our NVIDIA AI software.
Fantastic. And so we will get to that software aspect in a moment. First, Logan, I think, is the person to direct this at mostly. Let's spend a bit of time talking about the hardware. So explain for my listeners what the latest actually, I'm not certain that this is made for Logan necessarily, but explain what's up with the latest in GPUs from NVIDIA, as well as the different kinds of chips that are required to make something like a Pro-Max PC be such a success for AI developers.
Yeah, so I'll take part of it. I mean, I know Sama will probably provide a lot more detail than I will, and probably better detail. But I think when it comes to Dell Pro Max, acceleration by Blackwell, right? The card is at the core of it, and really any data science workflow. The acceleration, depending on what library, it's pandas or polars or whatever. It's really about how much can you load on the GPU, how quickly does that GPU work, and ultimately how quickly can you run that workflow. Now, there's some surrounding things around that. I mean, GPU is core to it, but there's other things within Dell Pro Max that also add to the experience and add to the ability to accelerate a workflow. I mean, our T2 tower, which is, even though it was announced last week, it launched today. I mean, people probably won't find this very interesting, but the size of that tower increased a little bit with not necessarily increasing the footprint that much. So you can add in, for example, more hard drives for data storage. You can add in extra cards if you want to run multiple monitors, things like that. And doing a few other things, being able to run on different applications, whether it's data science or not, being able to run kind of the new Intel processors at kind of a 250 watt sustained workload, which is very unique in the industry because that really wasn't the case before. So, all this has really been personally built when, like, you take the word max for Dell Pro Max, it means taking everything legitimately to the max, right? Like how far can we push this thing? And that's really Dell Pro Max in a nutshell.
Very cool. So let's talk a bit more about the GPUs in particular. I get the importance there, of course, of having CPUs. It sounds like ones there that are taking more power than ever before. And so you have, power requirements in this Pro Max line. Let's talk about the GPUs specifically as well. What is the difference between Blackwell and predecessor GPUs? Why is having a Blackwell GPU from NVIDIA more helpful to someone who's training or deploying AI models than GPU predecessors?
I can start,
Sure.
Logan, and then
Well,
I'm pretty sure I'll miss a bunch of things. So
you'll be fine. You'll do great. You're great, Salma. Go ahead, and then I'll add on. I'll add on.
Thank you. Perfect. So I think one of the things when we were talking to a lot of our data scientists in-house within our customer base as well, we soon realized in the last few years there was a lot of development, AI development happening, in the cloud, in the data center. But AI is now becoming mainstream, right? Everybody is trying to now fine tune a model. Logan and I are not technical people. We are in the product marketing. Or guess what? We are fine tuning our own models nowadays. We're running these models locally as well. And we soon realized that the systems we're using, you still need a little bit more horsepower in your system where you have the ability to actually have these data sets running locally, have these models running locally, have the ability to fine tune, run maybe a small RAG model just for yourself and things like that. I remember talking to a data scientist last year during summer, and he was talking about any time that he is trying to do a job, they had a Slack channel. He had to put his name down and he had to wait in line to get an instance where he could actually run his data set. So we recognize the need where now a lot of enterprise customers are struggling to get a lot more horsepower, and it's not possible to give away cloud and data center just for learning, just for experimentation. And it's interesting how AI is still evolving, right? Almost every day there is a new model you want to try, there is a new technique you want to try. So you need to have that local sandbox and experience where you can just do your learning, your experimentation. If I am a developer who's building an AI-based application, I probably want to continue doing all my testing because getting a data center resource is becoming more and more scarce. So that was a thought process with the NVIDIA RTX Pro Blackwell GPUs. And then we've got a full lineup in desktop and laptop format for you. But the biggest feature for me has been that we've doubled the GPU memory. So we've gone from 48 gigs to 96 gigs per GPU. You can actually have 4 of those in one workstation as well. So that's a lot of memory right at your desktop for you to
Wow.
continue doing running any kind of model locally, fine tuning that model, any kind of inference application that you want to run. You've got a lot of power right there within those GPUs itself,
Yeah.
along with our usual more and more of our advancements we make with the GPU. But that massive memory size to actually run these things locally has been a game changer.
Excited to announce, my friends, that the 10th annual ODSC East, the Open Data Science Conference East, the one conference you don't want to miss in 2025, is returning to Boston from May 13th to 15th. And I'll be there leading a 4-hour hands-on workshop on designing and deploying AI agents in Python. ODSC East is 3 days packed with hands-on sessions and deep dives into cutting-edge AI topics, all taught by world-class AI experts. Plus, there are many great networking opportunities. ODSC East is seriously my favorite conference in the world. No matter your skill level, ODSC East will help you gain the AI expertise to take your career to the next level. Don't miss. Online special discount ends soon. Learn more at odsc.com/Boston. Yeah, so 496 gig memory. So years ago, I'm kind of dating myself. The last time I built a server, I was buying 1080 Ti's, NVIDIA 1080 Ti GPUs, which were at that time impossible to get. Everyone was using them for Bitcoin mining. And so I'd have to take an Uber. I'm living in New York. I'd have to take an Uber to some distant Brooklyn warehouse to get one NVIDIA 1080 Ti GPU. And they'd be like, that's maximum one per customer. And then I'd have to try to source one somewhere else so that I could have two in my server. And those had 13 gigs of RAM. So I could get 26 gigs into this server that I'd built. And, for a while, actually, with the size of models, even in early kind of large language model era, myself as well as a team of 3 data scientists, all 4 of us were able to share 2. I built 2 of those servers in the end, and that was sufficient for us. And it would, compared to trying to run something on our laptop with just CPUs, it was crazy. You're talking about, that 10,000x kind of speed up to be doing that. And so it's interesting now that the paradigm that you're describing is kind of being reversed, because now somebody locally can have their own in that kind of system that I was just describing there. We were a small AI company with a relatively small data science team, but there was no option for us to be buying individual machines that we could be fine-tuning our own models. So we shared a couple of servers, and because large language models weren't absolutely massive like they are now, that was sufficient. But as you're describing, as LLMs have become gigantic, it has become very hard to get allocated cloud compute to be training or deploying AI models. And so it makes so much sense to me that you can have now a local box that is just for you. You can run whatever experiment you want. You can learn on it. But you can also do really heavy lifting, especially when you're talking about something like, so if you have 96 gigs on each one of these Blackwell chips, you can fit 4 into a Pro-Max. You're talking about almost 400 gigs. I'm putting you guys on the spot here, but do you happen to know what that would correspond to in terms of model weights in an LLM?
So I'll give you general, as long as you don't hold me to it and no one listening comes after. But as a general rule of thumb, every billion parameters in a model requires 2 gigabytes. So that, in essence, say an 8 billion parameter, approximately, right? And there's some things, quantization, what precision you're running at FP64, FP4, it all kind of varies. But I mean, the model size, I think you hit on a huge point, is that the model sizes, like say Llama 3, 405, like before, not really possible to run on a workstation. And it wasn't that it didn't want to or didn't have the desire. It just, the technology wasn't there. And I think you've hit on a great point, is the technology between Dell Pro-Max as well as NVIDIA Blackwell GPUs is enabling people to do things. And that's kind of the takeaway from GTC. You're able to do things you were never able to do before, which I think is super cool.
Mm-hmm. That is really cool. It's interesting. It is kind of a full circle. I mean, I'm even thinking back when I was doing my PhD, which is before really the most recent AI era. My PhD finished in 2012, which is when there was a big explosion of interest in deep learning as a result of AlexNet, the machine vision model released out of Jeff Hinton's lab at the University of Toronto. And then all of a sudden, everybody in academia and then in industry was taking notice of deep learning. And actually, it's interesting to have someone from NVIDIA on this call because it's the insight from Jensen Huang or
Yep.
whoever at NVIDIA at that time to say, whoa, we're building graphics processing units for rendering video game graphics or allowing editors to do video editing, that kind of thing. But we're going to invest a huge amount of money in money and time and hiring in specializing in this deep learning revolution that seems to be coming. So the story that I was going to tell, I'm just gonna really quickly wrap that up. But back then, in the pre-AI era, I remember, I was working at the University of Oxford. We'd have servers that lots of us would be competing for, and it's cool now to think that in that same lab, people could be buying. I mean, I had a very generous, as part of my PhD, I could spend something like 20,000 pounds, so about $25,000 on hardware, and so
Yep.
I could be buying one or more of these workstations and be, locally in full control of any LLM stuff that I want to do. So it's a very cool world that we're in. And then I want to get back to the NVIDIA story from around the time and kind of this visionary nature of what NVIDIA's done and reflected in their share price is this idea that, okay, deep learning is going to be gigantic, or let's assume that deep learning is going to be gigantic. And so let's build a software ecosystem, going back to your point earlier, Sama,
Yep.
that supports that. So tell us about things like CUDA, TensorRT, maybe a bit of the history and why those are so important in this GPU ecosystem and in this AI era.
Yep. I'm actually going to start first with NVIDIA AI Enterprise, right? Just completing the story of how we're doing things, especially with Dell Pro-Max AI PCs. So think of NVIDIA AI Enterprise as our version of, end-to-end software development platform, which is helping you not just accelerate your data science pipelines, but also really helping you build next-gen. It can be generative AI applications, it could be computer vision applications, it can be speech AI applications. And it has a lot of components. We've got NIM microservices. This is how we are delivering all kinds of AI models as containerized microservices. So literally think of any AI model in the world. We work with open source partners, proprietary partners. We have our own NVIDIA AI models as well. We're taking each of these AI models, putting them into a container, and then adding our I won't say secret sauce because everybody knows about TensorRT, LLM, and all kinds of services which are really helping you get the best inference possible on NVIDIA GPUs. And we're offering them as microservices. And the reason being, and you'll soon start seeing this from NVIDIA perspective, that we're providing almost all of our AI software as microservices, is because things are changing quickly. I'm a developer today who built an application with Llama 3. And guess what? In 2 months, Llama 3.1 comes. And then another 2 months, 3.2 comes up. So we want to make it really, really easy for people to just swap in the model as quickly as possible without really disrupting that entire pipeline. So that's NIM microservices. We've gotten all kinds of models from if you want to build a digital human to actually building speech-related applications to now we also have NIM microservices for our reasoning AI models as well. So that's the first component of NVIDIA AI Enterprise.
Really quickly before, so it's going to be obvious for sure to you, to both of you, as well as to many of our listeners, exactly what a microservice is. But could you define that for our listeners that don't know, just so that they understand what it is and why it's important, why it's helpful?
I actually don't have a definition of microservice.
Well, I'm going to give you not like a textbook definition, but I'm going to give you a practical definition, right?
Cool.
Let's say you're, a data scientist and you have created, let's just pretend, a chatbot with Llama 3. And you create that without a microservice, without, an NVIDIA NIM. Like Sama said, every time that model updates, if there's security, all this stuff, you're doing a ton of, I hate to say it, but background tedious work to get that to a point where you can deploy it, where when things change, for example, if you don't, that's the whole point of a microservice with NIM, is you basically can load that to literally one line of code, and the LLM part of it is really done for you. It is containerized, it's packaged, it's ready to go. So a data scientist can focus on, well, how am I going to customize it or building whatever application wrapper around it, versus like, I need to update the code here to get this to connect. Like, that's really the point of a NIM, is how quickly can I leverage the power of an LM vision model, whatever, with one line of code. That's the power of a NIM. And it runs on a workstation too. It runs on Dell Pro-Max servers. It runs pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, that the key point being with these NIM microservices, you don't have to make sure that the AI model is tuned to the GPU, right? We've done all of that work for you. So as soon as you're downloading this locally on your Dell Pro-Max PC, it already understands the kind of GPU it's running on. The only thing you have to make sure is the model you're downloading fits onto your GPU memory size. Now, but with 96 gigs of memory, you've got the entire world for you here.
Nice. And so I've been trying to, as you've been speaking, I've tried to kind of look up quickly online what NIM stands for. It doesn't seem to stand for anything that I can find easily. It just sounds, okay.
I'm going to let the secrets out. It actually stands for NVIDIA Inference Microservice. But then we also use NIM microservice. So it's like chai tea kind of a thing. They mean the same thing. But
Potato. Yep.
Nice. A potato.
Potato.
A potato brand potato.
Exactly. Cheese queso. That's what I always say. I go at a restaurant, I'll say, I want cheese queso. And then my wife always gives me a hard time. But yeah, cheese queso.
Nice. Yeah. Now I understand perfectly. Thank you for giving us that insight. It's interesting. It isn't something that's very public. So people really are getting the inside scoop on NIM. And yeah, it's just spelled NIM for our listeners who are wondering what word we're saying. It's exactly like it sounds. Yep. NIM in all caps. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes, of course. Anyway, so I interrupted you. Oh, go ahead.
Someone. I was just on the same topic of NIM microservices. I was going to say we've got a website called build.nvidia.com. That's where we host all of these NIM microservices. It's a good website to not just go try out these different kinds of AI models. You have the ability to prototype on the website itself. There are no charges for it at all. You can see models, again, by all kinds of partners that you work with, including NVIDIA models as well. They're segregated by the industry you work with or the use case you're trying to build. So it's easy to kind of maneuver around, find the exact model you want to work with. And then once you want to download this, we've made it easier. So if you really sign up for our NVIDIA developer program, we actually let you download these models and then continue to do your testing, experimentation free of cost. There are no charges at all. So you can continue as a developer. I would want to go try out different kinds of models, see what's working with my application. So we let you do that as well.
Fantastic. That was a great rundown. What I was going to say, and I'm glad that you had more to say on NIM microservices, because my transition was going to be that the last time I interrupted you, you were about to, I think, start talking about other aspects of the AI enterprise. So now I'll let you go on that.
So outside of NIM microservices, we've got NeMo, which really helps you build, train, fine-tune your own models, but also gets you the ability to add guardrails to your model so that, whenever you're deploying your application, you are making sure that the application gets used exactly the way that you want to do it itself. We've got AI blueprints. Think of these as reference AI workflows. So we give you the ability to build different kinds of AI applications. So think of this as a recipe. You've got the step-by-step process to actually build an application. There's a reference architecture. But we also get you the ability to add your own data to it. And that's what gets every company their own edge, right? You want to add your data, which is your differentiation at this point in time. So you have the ability to build different kinds of applications. What else do we have? We've got different kinds of frameworks and tools. So we actually do support different kinds of AI frameworks like PyTorch, TensorFlow. We also have our CUDA library. So I think this is a good time to kind of talk about CUDA as well, which really stands for Compute Unified Device Architecture.
I didn't know that. I've been using that word for like a decade now. Thank you.
So this really has been playing a crucial role in AI development by enabling efficient parallel computing on NVIDIA GPUs, right? So the idea was that this entire architecture really helps you train different kinds of models significantly faster, which means that you can, in some scenarios, actually reduce your training times from weeks to days, right? It is also helping you get better and better inference. So you see higher inference performance on NVIDIA GPUs because of this architecture of parallel processing, if you're comparing it to just CPU-only platforms. We now have and I'll have to look up the right number of how many CUDA libraries we have, but we've got tons and tons of these CUDA libraries, and these are GPU accelerated libraries. So a good example I'll give you is of Rapids QDF, right? So the idea, and Logan touched on this earlier as well, is the way Rapids QDF works is that it tends to mimic the APIs of a lot of data frames like pandas, polars. So if you are in that process of pre-processing your data in your data science workflow, it can actually accelerate that entire process by 100x on our 6,000 GPUs. Without any kind of code change. That's the beauty of it, that as a data scientist, all I'm doing is adding that one API line of code, and then it actually accelerates the entire process by 100x. So that's like massive time saving from a data scientist perspective. At GTC, we announced QML, which is again one of our CUDA libraries as well. This is helping you accelerate your machine learning tasks as well. So if you're using skitlearn, you have the ability to go up to 50x acceleration for your ML tasks as well. So each one of these libraries, and as I said, we've got tons of these right now, but depending on the data science task that you're doing, these are all designed to then offload that work to the GPU so that you can see that massive acceleration.
Ready to take your knowledge in machine learning and AI to the next level? Join Super Data Science and access an ever-growing library of over 40 courses and 200 hours of content. From beginners to advanced professionals, Super Data Science has tailored programs just for you, including content on large language models, gradient boosting, and AI. With 17 unique career paths to help you navigate the courses, you will stay focused on your goal. Whether you aim to become a machine learning engineer, a generative AI expert, or simply add data skills to your career, Super Data Science has you covered. Start your 14-day free trial today at superdatascience.com.
Nice. QML is a new one to me as well. I inferred correctly that the Q isn't like the letter Q, it's like the beginning of CUDA. And so it's CUML. And yeah, I'll have a link to that in the show notes. Looks really cool. GP accelerated machine learning algorithms designed for our listeners, designed for data science tasks. Thank you for the tour, Sama, of all of the amazing things that NVIDIA is doing on the software front for people who are training and deploying ML models. Logan, can you fill us in on how that relates to the Pro-Max systems that you are so involved with?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, as we kind of talked about before, right? All the new NVIDIA kind of Blackwell GPU architecture, the 6,000 on the way down, really is designed for Dell Pro Max, purpose-built for Dell Pro Max. And it's a little bit beyond Dell Pro Max, but let me give you a perfect example. Like, Sama was talking about, AI enterprise, right? Which is really kind of at the heart of any kind of data science workflow. Well, at Dell, we sell PCs, but we also sell servers, right? And where it really fits and ties in is kind of two parts. One is that if you're using, for example, a Dell Pro Max T2, you can do that work, AI enterprise, clean your data sets, refine, do some fine tuning, experimentation, all of that, leveraging QDF, everything through there. But let's say you want to go then deploy that. That is where it becomes very seamless using AI enterprise to take it from a Dell Pro Max to, the in-house server for deployment, or, taking it up kind of for bigger experimentation, right? Like that's really the layer that connects kind of everything that we do from the desk side all the way to the data center, which makes it very seamless. But then I'd be remiss not to talk about, we'll probably talk about it more, is the Dell Pro Max systems that are really purpose built for developers and data scientists, being the GB10 and the GB300. Those where, if you were to buy a Dell Pro Max T2, there is a cost of AI enterprise, right? But if you look at those two systems, all of those are designed really with all the NVIDIA stuff preloaded, ready to go. So it's out of the box, you plug it in and you're off to the races. And that's very different than the other Dell Pro Max systems, where I would say, maybe not too technical, but let's say someone here is a data scientist for, media and entertainment company. They're out there, they exist. And if you're doing anything outside of data science, you're going to want to be in a traditional Dell Pro Max system. But if you're doing only data science, that's where you're looking Dell Pro Max GB10 or GB300. Because, for example, Creative Cloud doesn't really work with Linux. Like it's just not designed for it. So you have to really make that distinction. But that software package is kind of the connecting glue from desk side all the way to deployment, whether you're doing it on a server, cloud, etc.
Okay, so let's
Um,
get. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sama.
I was going to do your part, John, and I'm going to ask Logan to actually describe how GB10 looks like Dell
Yeah,
Pro-Max GB10.
cool. Yeah, let's do that. But let's. I have got one thing that I want to get. That I want to get. So before we start talking about these specific PCs, you gave an example there of something that it was a creative suite. What was it that you
Mhm.
couldn't that wouldn't run on Linux?
Yeah. So perfect example. So Adobe Creative Cloud, which is think Premiere Pro, photo editing, video editing, all of that that's something that's unique. Is that all of our precision workstations previously, or workstations in general, could do data science, or they could do any other traditional kind of media entertainment workflow, video editing, etc. But there is kind of a line in the sand, which I think would probably make most developers on this call and data science on this call very happy, is this is a purpose-built system. And the people have to kind of think like, hey, if I'm only doing data science, we really need to lean towards the GB10 or the GB300. If I'm doing anything on top of data science, then I really need to be, because you have to kind of look, because that system only comes with Linux, which like
I
NVIDIA GDX
see.
Linux.
GB10s, GB300s, which are models of Dell Pro Max, which we'll talk about in a
Yes.
second. Those are Linux-based systems. That is
There you go.
really interesting to hear, because so the question that I kind of had in my head that was starting to come up was, I have personally been programming or doing data science on Unix-based systems for a long time now, and so that is an interesting. What I was going to ask, and actually, so here is still a question that I think is hopefully really interesting for a lot of listeners, and is definitely interesting for me, is why should I consider switching from a Unix-based system to perhaps a Windows-based system, as a data scientist?
Well, I mean, a couple of things is that you don't necessarily have to with the GB10 and the GB300, because that is kind of Linux based, and that's why, right? At the end
Right,
of the
right,
day,
right, right.
we know. I mean, I'm not a data scientist, never claimed to be one, but y'all love Linux, and that's great. It works well, accelerates well. I'm a Windows guy. I've always been a Windows guy. I mean, there is some optimizations, not that we can really talk about, but with WSL2, it makes that seamless transition a little bit better. I personally like Windows. I'm not trying to change your mind, but if you're doing anything outside of that, it does sometimes make it easier to run on Windows, depending on the applications that you're actually using, and just from a compatibility standpoint. But yeah, if you're a data scientist, you like Linux, that's the whole reason for GB10 and GB300, is you like it, it works, you're used to it. There you go.
And I would say you don't even have to choose, especially with GB10, because I'm going to steal your thunder here, Logan. It literally fits in the palm of your hand, John. It's this tiny small box. Logan actually has maybe a
Well, I
prototype. Oh,
had
no.
one. I brought one back from GTC, but this is a representative example. Probably actually bigger. Box of Kleenexes. Probably chop off that.
Exactly.
I
Okay.
mean, legit, like
And
palm of the hand.
that's actually useful, given that most of our listeners are only listeners and not viewers of YouTube. It's
Yeah.
actually maybe even more useful that you just brought out a Kleenex
Kleenex,
box.
that's all I had.
Because that's gives our audio only listeners an idea. He took a Kleenex box and cut off about a third of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to my point, you can actually be using a Dell Pro-Max AI PC with Windows
Right.
running for all of your productivity apps and have this GB10 attached to it. And you can let it be, if you're training a small model, fine-tune it,
Oh.
it can be on the side,
Yeah,
right?
you can actually daisy chain two of them together. So you can actually have a Dell Pro Max, like a laptop, if you're a mobility person, and have two GB10s networked together. Is it NVIDIA X Connect or whatever the connection is?
ConnectX,
But
yep.
yeah, ConnectX, yeah. So you can actually have two. And it's smaller than pretty much even that setup would be smaller than pretty much every desktop tower that we sell.
And that kind of gets you the ability of you don't have to choose. You can continue doing all of your productivity workflows on Windows if that's what you're used to. And then if you're also doing your data science or developer tasks, you can easily do that on Linux by having best of the both worlds together.
Nice. So this is similar to the situation that I was describing earlier, where I was talking about, hey, I hand built these servers with NVIDIA GTX 1080 Ti's in them years ago, and 4 of us on the data science team would log in through a terminal. So that's a similar kind of idea here, where you can be using whatever operating system you want on, say, the laptop you're typing on. But then when you want to do something with an LLM, you open up a terminal window, some kind of window for
Yep.
accessing that machine, and you run from there. Okay, that's really
Yep.
cool. All right. And so now we understand that a GB10, you can blow your nose with it, and
Yes.
it's and it's very compact. Tell us about the GB300, the other kind of
So
Linux-based
so the
Pro-Max.
GB300 you are not blowing your nose with, because it is. I don't really have a representative example, but it is a traditional, sized kind of fixed tower. What and what I think is so exciting about this is one, it's running on the Grace Blackwell like Ultra super chip. So when we say GB Grace Blackwell, right? So this is a kind of an integrated system on a chip design that has 784 gigs of unified memory, 288 specifically for GPU, 496, hopefully my math is correct, of kind of CPU memory. And tops wise, I know that that's a term maybe audience has heard of or not, but it's basically tera operations per second, is at FP4. That is 20,000 tops. And let me just give you a set kind of context of that, is that within the RTX cards, the Blackwell cards, just the singular 6000 with 96 gigs, that's about 4,000 tops approximately, right? So this is a very, very server level powerful system that is designed for, I mean, you could really put this thing in a data center and it would act like a server, but it is at the desk side. And the power and I mean, just the whole thing and the whole design, I think it's not going to be for everyone at the end of the day, right? But for those that are heavy data scientists working in an enterprise, this is going to be a system of choice for you. I mean, honestly, with the horsepower that it's built, it's kind of insane, to be completely honest.
I actually see teams using this where they can easily access multiple people can access it at the same time. John, the way you were talking about how you had a small team of AI developers and data scientists, they could be using it at the same time, plugging in, getting their work done. But it's again on the desk side, it's on-prem. You get to keep your data private right there with you.
Exactly. And I want to add on to that because that's a good point, is that the multi-instance of that, it's very important, is that at the end of the day, just being very transparent from the knowledge that I've gained, is that when you look at companies that have, that have started down kind of an AI, path or journey, right? It's usually the bigger companies because, there's costs associated, it takes time, talent, what I think, and then just generally, I'm not a server guy. I've never been a server guy. It is not that they're bad. I just don't know much about them, right? That's a skill set that I don't have. Everyone kind of has a client, desktop, skill set. And I really think what the GB300, kind of like Tosama's point, will bring is if you are maybe in a smaller company, you're more of a mid-market and you don't have servers and you don't want to mess with it, this gives you the ability to really bring AI to, your company, whether it's, RAG model, fine tune something, build up some agentic apps, whatever you want to do. And you're not having to go out and, get racks and cooling and all the other things that come along with servers.
Hey, this is your host, John Krohn. I'm excited to announce that this Northern Hemisphere spring, I'm launching my own data science consultancy, a firm called Y-Carrot. If you're an ML practitioner who's familiar with Y-Hat, you may get our name. But regardless of who you are, if you're looking for a team that combines decades of commercial experience in software development and machine learning with internationally recognized expertise in all the cutting-edge approaches, including Gen AI, multi-agent systems, and RAG, well, now you've found us. We have rich experience across the entire project lifecycle, from problem scoping and proof of concept through to high-volume production deployments. If you'd like to be one of our first clients, head to ycarrot.com and click Partner with Us to tell us how we can help. Again, that's ycarrot, YCARROT.com.
Amazing. That is actually exactly the next question I was going to ask, was kind of around cost and like when it would be appropriate to use servers or this kind of system. And so you just nailed it there. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that kind of, this kind of builds on the point I was making earlier about this transition from, there was a point, like when I think back to my PhD ending in 2012, there were a fair few number of things that I could at least test locally. Maybe I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to scale this up over a larger data set. And so I'll use like a supercompute cluster or something. But in the world that we're in now, it's a completely different world where I can't just have a gigantic llama model on my laptop and do anything with it. It's impossible. So it is an interesting, it's a completely different kind of world that we're in now. And, so we went through this transition from being able to do a lot of things as a data scientist locally on a laptop, then to getting used to doing a lot of things in the cloud. And now folks like you two literally are bringing new kinds of solutions, a new kind of paradigm where you can have either a Kleenex box or a desktop tower that can supercharge your ability to be using all the cutting edge AI models yourself without having to wait in line for anyone else. So I guess I just summarized a lot of points there, but I don't know if you guys have anything to add around, who this is a great solution for, in terms of a company or an individual, particularly maybe with respect to cost or efficiency.
Okay. I mean, I'll take a stab at it. So, GB10 Kleenex box, we're just going to call it the Kleenex box. I mean, that could be scaled down to a student, or it could be scaled up and, put inside a Dell. I personally am going to get one and use it. The GB300 is, really, regardless of enterprise size, it's people that are doing very, very heavy workloads, right? I mean, it is a server-esque. Now, pricing is TBD, so I'll probably get in trouble. Let's just say that NVIDIA and their, Spark DGX Spark product, I think, is it 3,000 to 4,000, Sama? Is that right? Okay,
Yep.
I would assume that Dell's probably in that range for the Kleenex box as well. Pricing hasn't been released for GB300, but considering you're going from 1,000 AI tops all the way up to 20,000, it will be more expensive, but it will not be the cost of a server.
Cool. That's a great. It's a
way to keep me out of trouble. To keep me out of trouble.
You're really, really nice. Yeah, I was wondering if we get into specific pricing, and I think that was directional enough that it's helpful to me and our listeners. All right, so one last kind of big technical question for both of you. You guys are sitting right at the forefront of AI. You're going to conferences like GTC, which also I should clarify again, just for listeners, when anytime on this show that anybody said last week or today, they're talking about at the time of recording, which is about a month before this episode is published. So just so you're aware that kind of you're not on a time warp. GTC was 5 weeks ago, not last week when you're listening to this. But so with the ear on the ground that both of you have, where do you see trying to look into? I realize it's very hard to look into a crystal ball with how fast AI moves. But if you could try to make some predictions about what being a data scientist or an AI developer, or maybe even just what life will be like in the coming years, the coming decades, I would love to have your thoughts. Big question. I don't know who wants to go first. You can kind of just rush into that.
I mean, I'll take a bit of a stab at it. And I mean, I have wild theories about what the world might be like with the advent of AI. And I don't think it's going to be robots taking over, right? I don't believe it's that. I believe is that if you think about it, any sort of technology or software, there's some sort of, seminal moment, like where think about, first time you had a cell phone in the palm of your hand, right? And yes, there is AI in different applications and stuff like that. I think what you're going to start seeing is kind of two big shifts. Is that one, you're going to see AI get into the hands of a lot more people. And what I mean by that is not, and I am not a developer. I mean, Sama will attest, when I was hired for the job about a year ago, I mean, I was not great, but I was able to go out, learn, educate myself, pull down different SDKs from GitHub, other things, to go out and train my own lures for an animation studio. I was able to do X, Y, Z. And I think you're going to see that become, a lot more accessible and easy and popular as kind of the years go on. And then I think the other thing that you're going to start seeing is AI kind of make its way into our daily life. For example, complete crazy, but my mom's kind of old school. They're like 70, but she has a recipe book, in these little recipe cards thing. And I was like, hey, Mom, that pumpkin pie recipe that you have? I'd really like to get it. And she's like, oh, let me find the card. I mean, there's thousands of cards, dude. That's not alphabetized or whatever. And I was like, wow, what if my mom had a rag model of all of her recipes where all she had to do was really type that in and just say pumpkin pie, and it would just deliver and be able to tell you that. Could we go set that up? I could go set that up for her, but that would be the work. And I think what you're going to start seeing is some of these technologies and things like that make its way into the mainstream where it's going to simplify our lives. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that that's what you're going to start seeing over time.
I'm going to repeat what Jensen kind of painted that picture in his keynote as well, that we've gone from really the years of generative AI to now being in the world of agentic AI, right? You've got an agent, an AI-powered agent for everything. So if you are, let's say, in a factory setting, you've got an AI agent which is managing your incoming raw material and how much that is coming. Let's say you got less raw material. So this AI agent is telling that AI agent, which is managing the floor, guess what? We've got less raw material, so your end product is going to be less. And then this AI agent itself is telling the transportation one that we've got less, you don't need that many trucks today, right? So we definitely are entering that world with a lot of these reasoning AI models coming into being as well, of AI agents, where you can build these systems which have the ability to learn, perceive, but then also act. And I think what the future is all about physical AI, right? You have a lot of these autonomous systems now, which are able to, again, learn, perceive, but then accordingly act. But this is in our physical world itself. So if you think of autonomous vehicles, I'm in the Bay Area. I get to see a lot of these driverless cars all the time. But then every week, I see them getting better and better at it because they're learning, they're perceiving different kinds of conditions of the road, if they're seeing somebody walking on the streets as well. So I definitely bet AI can kind of getting integrated a lot with our physical world. But as a personal opinion, I hope there are a lot of guardrails and regulations just to make it safer for everybody to use it then.
That was well done. And I realize, you're using the CEO of NVIDIA, which is this hugely important AI company globally. And so, I really appreciate you bringing those insights. It makes it so clear to see where we're going. I think you two worked perfectly, not only on that question, but on this whole episode. I've loved this. It was so much fun. And I hope that I can get both of you on an episode again sometime soon. Yeah, to dig into another topic.
Logan.
It was so great. Yeah, nice.
We nailed it.
Yep.
Before I let you guys go, I always ask my guests for a book recommendation. Have you got one for me? Maybe Sama, go first, because I think I saw you hold a book up earlier.
Yes, this is definitely one of my favorite book. It's called The Forest of Enchantments. It's by this Indian author called Chitra Banerjee. I highly recommend this. It's based on Ramayana, the mythological story around it. It's great, especially for any, I want to say, woman who's trying to create their own career in any field. It gets you a lot of self-confidence in you as well. But I do love Gary Janetti. If he's listening, I am a really, really big fan. His books are amazing. They make me laugh. They make me cry at the same time. So I am a very big Gary Janetti fan. I love all his books. So those would be my recommendations.
I'm sure famed author Gary Janetti is a listener to the Super Data Science podcast. No question. I'm sure he's really happy to hear it. Thanks for those great recommendations, Sama. Logan, what have you got for us?
I thought about this, and I'm not a huge reader. Like, I'm more of a talker. If you haven't, you probably can't see this, but I've got my Get Started manual for my Dell GB, my XB webcam. It's riveting reading. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, books wise, it's been a while. I'll admit. One book that I do not have in front of me, like Sama, but I really did like, and as cliche as it might be, was The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Like, in the context of business, there's been I've read it over the course of a couple of times, and it was just, I like it because it definitely relates back to business and things about like the importance of strategy and thinking about what you're doing before you go out and tackle things, and talking about, hey, what is kind of a tactical way I want to do things, or thinking about, hey, when I'm under fire, how do I handle that? And not that promoting war or anything like that, but just in the context of business, it's very interesting. And I've definitely used a few nuggets from that book over the course of my career, for sure.
Awesome. Great recommendation. I've read some excerpts from it, and it does seem...
It's not a very long book. I mean,
I've heard that as well.
It's about like the Dell Pro-Max webcam. It's pretty close. Not pretty thin, like a tissue. If we're keeping on the tissue box analogy, it's about a tissue.
How
pretty
many
thin.
arts of war can you fit into a single GB10?
Ooh, probably 3. Paperback.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Thanks so much, both of you. If people want to hear more insights from you or just have a laugh, perhaps, because you've both been really fun and funny on the show today, how can people follow you? Sama, do you want to go first?
I think the best way is LinkedIn. I'm probably the only Sama Bali you will find there, so that's the best way. Send me a message. I'm happy to connect.
Nice. Yeah, we'll have a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes and maybe Logan's too.
Yeah, I mean, mine as well. LinkedIn's the best. That's where I'm most active. It's just, Logan Lawler. I mean, pretty straightforward. I think I'm the only one. Actually, no, there is a couple of other ones, which is shocking. But I'm the one, that kind of looks like this. Yeah, the one at Dell that says Dell Pro-Max in their profile.
Yeah, and for our audio-only listeners, find the LinkedIn profile that sounds like this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Perfect.
Hey, John, one other thing I want to talk about before we close out, and we really appreciate you having us on the show, is that for everyone that's kind of listening, I'm putting together a program. Easiest way to describe it is we're looking for data scientists that, have heavy industry knowledge experience to kind of help us do 2 things. One, to help us kind of test products, right? Like the GB10, the GB300, as well as, in our product design process, right? Where we at Dell, we work kind of directly with the ITDMs, but we're always looking for the end users that are actually using the workflows, whether it be in data science or M&E or engineering, it doesn't really matter. Being able to understand the workflows that impact them, what they do on a daily basis, and what they need in a Dell Pro Max. So I'm starting kind of a developer advisory council, so we say. And if you're interested in it, want to hear more, I'm throwing out the offer. Happy to chat. I'm very fast at email. It's just Logan_Lawler@Dell.com. And it'll also be, John, I think, said we'll include it in the show notes. But reach out to me. Would love to hear it. Would love to meet you, hear about what you're doing. And if it's a right fit and it makes sense, then would love to have you part of the council.
Love that. That's such a nice call to action for my audience who should be spot on the money for that kind of thing.
Well, that's what I need them, because it's not me.
Yeah,
it's not me.
It's perfect. Thanks, Logan.
Of course.
All right. So, so awesome having both of you on the show. Really enjoyed it, as I've already said. And hopefully catch you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, John. It was a great time.
What a fun, informative time with Sama Bali and Logan Lawler. In today's episode, they covered NVIDIA's Blackwell GPUs and how they offer unprecedented memory capacity of up to 96 gigabytes per GPU, with the ability to install 4 GPUs in one workstation, providing nearly 400 gigabytes of GPU memory, sufficient to run LLMs with about 200 billion parameters. They also talked about how NVIDIA AI enterprise software creates a seamless ecosystem between workstations and servers featuring NIM, NVIDIA Inference Microservices, that allow one-line implementation of AI models without requiring manual GPU tuning. They filled us in on Dell Pro-Max PCs and how they are designed specifically for heavy computational workloads that require GPU acceleration and a Unix-based operating system. They talked about how the GB10 workstation is compact enough to fit in a palm, yet powerful enough for significant AI workloads, while the GB300 delivers server-class performance with 20,000 AI TOPS and nearly 800 gigs of unified memory. And finally, we talked about how the democratization of AI is accelerating as technologies like these make powerful AI capabilities accessible to smaller organizations and individuals without requiring enterprise-level server infrastructure. As always, you can get all the show notes, including the transcript for this episode, the video recording, any materials mentioned on the show, the URLs for Sama and Logan's social media profiles, as well as my own, at superdatascience.com/883. And if you'd like to engage with me in person, as opposed to just through social media or this podcast, I'd love to meet you in real life at the Open Data Science Conference, ODSC East, which is running from May 13th to 15th in Boston. I will be hosting the keynote sessions, and along with my longtime friend and colleague, the extraordinary Ed Donner, I'll be delivering a 4-hour hands-on training in Python to demonstrate how you can design, train, and deploy cutting-edge multi-agent AI systems for real-life applications. Thanks, of course, to everyone on the Super Data Science podcast team, and a warm welcome to Nathan Daly, who just joined us is our head of partnerships. In addition, we've got Natalie Jaisky on partnerships as well, our podcast manager, Sonia Brajevich, our media editor, Mario Pombo, our researcher, Serge Massis, our writer, Dr. Zara Karche, and our founder, Kirill Eremenko. Thanks to all of them for producing another excellent episode for us today, for enabling that super team to create this free podcast for you. We are deeply grateful to our sponsors. You can support this show by clicking on our sponsors' links, which are in the show notes. And if you yourself would like to sponsor an episode, you can get the details on how at johnkrohn.com/podcast. Otherwise, share the episode with folks who might like to listen to it as well or view it as well. Review the show on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Edit the videos into shorts if you want to. But most importantly, just keep on tuning in. I'm so grateful to have you listening, and I hope I can continue to make episodes you'll love for years and years to come. Till next time, keep on rocking it out there, and I'm looking forward to enjoying another round of the Super Data Science Podcast with you very soon.